Welcome back to another crochet tutorial with Cozy Rosie UK, and today I'm sharing with you how to crochet this beautiful coaster. It's slightly larger than your standard coaster so that some of the detail is still seen even with your mug or glass on top. Now before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and of course the notification bell so that you never miss out on another of my crochet patterns or tutorials again. Now this coaster is a corresponding pattern to the table runner that is also available on my channel. I'll pop a picture of the rectangle version of this same stitch pattern, which I've made into a table runner, which is also available on my channel too. Now, if you do need to see the written pattern for this tutorial, you can find that linked in the description box for you below. Let's find out the materials we're using to make this pattern. Now, I'm using 3 colours of Knit Crafts by Hobbycraft Cotton Blend Plain. Now, this is a 50% cotton acrylic blend, and you can see I've used quite a lot already because I really like this yarn. So it does have that 50-50 blend of cotton and acrylic, and it has a recommended hook size of 5mm. It is marked as a DK weight, but it's a heavy DK, closer to a heavy size 3 would be the best description. The fact that it recommends a 5mm crochet hook tells me that it's not really a DK weight, but each to their own when it comes to their definitions. So you can use any worsted or size 3 or heavy size 3, even an Aran weight yarn if you want to make these coasters. I would recommend having either 100% cotton or a cotton acrylic blend because you want that absorption level that comes from the cotton, but the acrylic of course does mean that it doesn't absorb water as well. I'm going to be using these 3 different colours. This will be colour A, which is the hot pink. Colour B for me is going to be this lilac, and of course, oh no, wrong way around, sorry. Just swap those around. So we've got A, which is hot pink, B, which is the white, and C, which is lilac. And now we're tangled before we even start. As I've mentioned, I'm going to be using my 5mm crochet hook. You are going to need a pair of scissors and of course a darning needle because we're going to work each round in a different colour. I'm going to be starting with colour A and my 5mm hook. So gather those materials and let's get started. We're going to start by making a slip knot and placing that onto our hook. This project is worked in the round, so we're going to start by making a chain of 4 by yarning over and pulling through 4 times. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4. We're then going to slip stitch into that first chain that we made. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're slip stitching into that first chain, yarning over and pull through straight through the loop on your hook to complete that slip stitch. We're going to work into the center of this ring. Now you can see where we've slip stitched, it creates a hole at the top, and then we're aiming for that middle hole, which is where we're going to be working all of our stitches. We're then going to make a chain of 4. So yarn over and pull through 4 times. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now this chain 4 counts as our first double crochet of the round, and it's also going to help create our first corner. So in theory we should make a longer chain, but if we do, it makes the hole a little bit too big. So it actually counts as a double crochet and a chain 3, even though we've only done a chain of 4. We're then going to work into the center of our ring, so that second hole at the bottom, right into the middle, and we're going to place a double crochet. So we yarn over the hook, find the center of our ring and insert our hook. I'm also making sure that I'm working over my tail at the same time. So we've inserted into the middle of that ring, we've yarned over so we have what looks like extra loops on our hook. So we're going to yarn over and bring our loop up so we have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through 2, and then again yarn over and pull through 2. So this chain 4 that we've worked counts as a double crochet, a chain 3 and our first double crochet. We're then going to make a chain of 1 before working a second double crochet into that same middle of the ring. So we yarn over and we're reinserting into that hole, into the ring that we've created. I'm making sure that I'm working over my tail at the same time. Yarn over to bring your loop back through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we're going to create a second corner. We make a chain of 3. So yarn over and pull through 3 times, 2 and 3. We're going to be working back into the center of our ring, working over our end, yarning over to work a double crochet back into the center, bring that loop up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. We then make a chain of 1 before repeating that all again. So we yarn over and insert, ready for our double crochet. We then need to create another corner, so we chain 3, 2 and 3. We're yarning over, ready to work a double crochet back into the center of our circle. 2, pull through 2. We're chaining 1 before we repeat it once again. So we yarn over and insert, make our double crochet. We're making another corner, so we chain 3, 1, 2 and 3. Yarn over to work back into the center again, placing another double crochet. We then chain 1 and we're ready to join our first round. We're going to be joining into the 3rd chain that we made, leaving 1 chain to work as our corner in this instance, just by inserting into that chain 3 and slip stitching to join. I'm going to encourage you to slip stitch into that chain space that we created, and then we are ready to fasten off our first round. So I've made little chain 1 and then we are ready to fasten off. And I'm just going to use my hook to bring that through, making sure that's nice and snug. So at the end of round 1, we will have 4 chain 3 spaces, which act as our corner, although we know this is only a chain 1. And then we have 4 chain 1 spaces where our V stitches are. This pattern will make more sense as you move through the pattern, believe it or not, but we're going to go straight into round 2, and I'm going to be changing colour to colour B, which for me was white. I'm going to use my technique of tying on, so I just insert the end where I've fastened off into that chain 3 space. You can join in any chain 3 space. And just literally tying that on, leaving a nice long tail. So we're fastening on just in front of our chain 4 from the previous round. Once we've attached colour B, we're going to start by inserting our hook and making another chain of 4. So we just yarn over and pull through. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4. This does count as a double crochet and a chain 1. So we're going to finish our V-stitch by yarning over and reinserting in the same chain space, working a second double crochet to create our V-stitch. And make sure these ends are nice and neat. And then we're in our corner, so we're going to work a chain of 3. So 1, 2 and 3. We're going to work a further V-stitch into this same corner. So we're yarning over and inserting to work our V-stitch, which is a double crochet, a chain of 1 and another double crochet, all worked into that same corner space. I'm going to move my ends out of the way, and you can see that we've created our corner. Into our chain 1 spaces, which is kind of in between each of our corners, we're going to work 1 V-stitch. So into that chain 1 space, in between the stitches, we're working a V-stitch, which is a double crochet, a chain of 1 and a further double crochet. We've then reached our next chain 3 space, or our next corner, so we're working a V-stitch, a chain 3 and another V-stitch. So we're inserting to work our first double crochet, We make a chain of 1 followed by another double crochet worked into the same chain 3 space, and that completes our first V-stitch. We then make our chain of 3 to replicate our corner, and 3, before working a second V-stitch into the same chain 3 space. That's 1 double crochet, a chain 1, and another double crochet, all worked into the same chain 3 space. So we now have 2 corners of our square worked, and we have a chain 1 space, and in here we're going to work 1 V-stitch. So we're working 1 double crochet, a chain 1, and then another double crochet back into that same chain 1 space. We're then back to a chain 3, so we're repeating our corner, which is 1 V-stitch, which is a double crochet, chain 1, and another double crochet, a chain 3, and then a further V-stitch made up of our double crochet, our chain 1, and another double crochet to repeat that corner again. In our chain 1 we repeat just 1 V-stitch, so a double crochet, a chain 1 followed by another double crochet into that chain 1 space. We're back to our chain 3 space, so we're working our corner, which is a V-stitch, followed by a chain of 3, and another V-stitch into that same corner or chain 3 space. That leaves us just 1 chain 1 space to work into, and we are of course working just 1 V-stitch in there, so a double crochet, a chain 1, I've got to make sure I don't catch that, and another double crochet. We're then going to join to our third chain. Our first one's disappeared, so 1, 2, 3, and that will leave that nice chain 1 space. 1, 2, 3, and that will leave our chain 1 space from our previous V-stitch. I would recommend that you slip stitch across to the next chain 3 space, simply because it will give you a really nice finish, and we're joining each of our colours into our chain 3 spaces or our corners, just to keep things nice and neat. Once you've slip stitched across into your chain 3 space, you can grab your scissors and fasten off. I'm going to pull up with my hook, and then we have round 2 completed. So at the end of round 2 you will have 12 V-stitches and 4 chain 3 spaces. I'm going to grab my colour C, which is the lilac, and I'm joining into that same chain 3 space that I just fastened off. It's just feeding it through and securing it with a little knot. And then we are ready to start round 3. Now round 3 we're going to be working a different stitch. We're going to be using our granny stitch, which is a 3 double crochet cluster across the sides of this square, but our corner remains the same. So we're inserting our hook and beginning with our chain of 4. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 4. That chain 4, as always, counts as a double crochet and a chain 1. We continue by working into the same chain 3 space with another double crochet to complete that V-stitch. We then work our chain of 3, 1, 2 and 3, before working a second V-stitch into the same chain 3 space. Instead of working into our chain 1 spaces from our previous round, we're going to be working into the space in between the V-stitches. So we're going to skip this first V-stitch, so we're skipping the V-stitch, the chain 1 and the next double crochet of that V-stitch, and working into the space between these V-stitches. And we're going to place 3 double crochets into the space between those V-stitches. So we yarn over the hook, we're skipping this V-stitch and inserting our hook in between the 2 V's, working 3 double crochets. So that's 1. Reinsert back in to work a second double crochet, and again to work a third double crochet. We're skipping over the next V-stitch to work in between, once again placing 3 double crochets. That's 1, 2 and 3. That brings us to our next chain 3 space, where we're going to be working the same corner as we did before, working a V-stitch with a chain 3 and another V-stitch. So we're working a double crochet, chain 1 and another double crochet before making our chain of 3, 1, 2 and 3, and working a second V-stitch into the same corner space, double crochet, chain 1 and a double crochet. I'm going to repeat this all the way around, working a 3 double crochet cluster into the space between the V-stitches, and then into the corner or the chain 3 spaces we're working a V-stitch, a chain 3 and another V-stitch. So remember to skip that first V-stitch before working your first 3 double crochet cluster, and I will meet you at the end of round 3, where we're going to be changing stitches once again. So I'm just slip stitching to my 3rd chain at the end of this round to join, having worked into each of my corners and working my 3 double crochet clusters, and I'm going to slip stitch into each across to the next chain 3 space to give us a perfect finish. Once I'm in that next chain 3 space, I'm going to make a little chain 1 ready to fasten off. So at the end of round 3, you should have 8 V-stitches in your corners, and then 8 3 double crochet clusters or granny stitches in the sides, and of course you should still have 4 chain 3 spaces. I'm going to be changing back to my colour A, which is this lovely hot pink, and again I'm just joining it into my corner. I like to make sure that I tie on ahead of the knot where I just fastened off, because then we can easily work over that. So I'm just making sure that that's nice and secure. And we're going into round 4, and this time we're going to be working the granny spike stitch. We start by making a chain of 3 this time, so that's 1, 2 and 3, and this counts as our first double crochet in our 3 double crochet cluster. So we're going to work a further 2 double crochets, so we yarn over and insert into the same chain 3 space to work the remainder of our 3 double crochet cluster. We're then going to make a chain of 2 before we work a 3 double crochet cluster into the same chain 3 space again. So we're yarning over and working a further 3 double crochets into this same corner space. That's 2 and 3. We're then going to be working into the space between either our V-stitches and our 3 double crochet clusters. But we're going to be working a granny spike stitch, which means that we're going to be working a double crochet, a long double crochet and a double crochet. So it's still a 3 double crochet cluster, but the middle double crochet is a long double crochet. We're going to be working our long double crochet into the middle of the V-stitch 2 rows below. So we're on this current row here. This is the row we should be working into, and we're going to skip down to work our spike into that V-stitch below. So we start by yarning over our hook. We're inserting into the space between our 3 double crochet cluster and our V-stitch. So essentially we're skipping over our V-stitch to work in between the clusters. So we yarn over, insert our hook, work our first double crochet, And then we're going to work our long double crochet. So we're going to be working 1, 2 rows below into the space in the V-stitch below. So we yarn over, insert our hook all the way down, we skip that space, we're going into that space into our V-stitch. Because we're going to be working a long double crochet, when we yarn over, I release my tension a little bit and I bring my hook all the way up to the height of my current round. It's not pulling it too tightly, and then I'm yarning over to pull through those first 2 loops, and that secures that long part of the double crochet, and then we yarn over, pull through 2 to finish the stitch. We need to work 1 further double crochet back into this space, right here. So this is where we should be working, and we've worked 2 rows down. So we're going to yarn over, kind of go behind this long double crochet into the space we were working into originally to complete that double crochet. And that is what your granny spike stitch will look like, worked into the 2 rows below. Don't worry, I'm going to do it all again with you for this one. So we're skipping over the 3 double crochet cluster, working into the space between them. We're going to work a double crochet. We're then going to work a long double crochet 2 rows below into the V-stitch. So we yarn over, skip that space and insert our hook into the middle of that V-stitch, making sure we've got a nice loose yarn to bring our hook up to the current row height, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. We then work our 3rd double crochet into the space behind our long double crochet, and that completes the granny spike stitch. I'm going to do that once more. So we yarn over, insert into the next space between the clusters. Then we're going to get ready to work our long double crochet 2 rows below, inserting our hook into the space between our V stitches, bring our hook up to the height of our current row, pull through 2, pull through 2. We're then going to work 1 final double crochet into that space behind the long double crochet to complete our first 3 granny spike stitches. We're then going to work into our chain 3 space, so we skip over this next V-stitch and straight into our chain 3 space, working a 3 double crochet cluster. So that's 1, 2 and 3 double crochets. We're making a chain of 2 for the corner, followed by a further 3 double crochets all into that chain 3 space. That's number 2 and number 3. So into these spaces between our clusters, we're working that spike stitch, and then in our corners or our chain 3 spaces, we're working 3 double crochets, a chain 2 and a 3 double crochet. Continue to work around and I'll meet you to join the end of round 4. So once you've worked that last granny V-stitch, we skip over that last V-stitch, ready to slip stitch into the top of that chain 3. And we're going to slip stitch to join, and I'm still going to encourage you to slip stitch across into that chain 3 space. Before fastening off. Now you may find at the end of this round that your tension may have created a little bit of waviness. Now you can block this and it will be absolutely fine, and you can stop at this round. But if you, like me, you're not the best fan of blocking and you really just want to give it a little bit more pizzazz, we're going to add 1 final round before fastening off and weaving all our ends. So I'm rejoining a colour C in my normal style into that chain 3 space or into any chain 3 space, just fastening it on, making sure that my knot is over my knot, so to speak. And then we are going back to our V-stitch for this round. We're going to start with our chain of 4. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4. We work a further double crochet to complete that first V-stitch. We then chain 3 for our corner before working a further V-stitch into that same chain 3 space. So double crochet, chain 1 and another double crochet. Can move those ends out of the way for now. So instead of working into the space between our clusters here, we're going to be working into the top of the stitch in the middle of our clusters from the previous round. So for now, we just skip 1 stitch and we're going to be working into the middle stitch of that first cluster. So we skip 1, yarn over and work 1 V-stitch into that next stitch. So double crochet, chain 1 and another double crochet. We then skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and we're working into the top of that spike stitch or that long double crochet from the previous round. So we skip 1, 2, and that's where we're going to be working. So we yarn over, insert into the top of that long double crochet to work your next V-stitch. So double crochet, chain 1, and another double crochet, skip 2, ready to work into the top of that next long double crochet with another V-stitch, double crochet, chain 1 and a further double crochet, skip 2 and repeat, working a V-stitch into the top of that next long double crochet. Got 1 more to work, so we skip 2, ready to work into the middle of that 3 double crochet cluster there, that stitch in the middle of the 3 double crochet cluster, with another V-stitch. We're then going to be working into our chain 2 space from the previous round, working a V-stitch, so a double crochet, chain 1 and a further double crochet, a chain of 3 and a further V-stitch into that same chain 2 space, double crochet, chain 1 and another double crochet. We're going to repeat this all the way around, working into the middle stitch of our cluster. So there's 1, you have to be careful because you might cover that one up. So 1, 2. So we skip 1 and work into that middle of the 3 double crochet cluster. Then we skip 2 to work into the top of our long, all the way across to our final 3 double crochet cluster, working into that middle stitch there before working a V-stitch, chain 3 and another V-stitch into our chain 3 spaces all the way around, and I'll meet you to join and finish our final round of this project. I just wanted to show you when you reach where you slip stitch across, if you look just underneath your slip stitches, so we're looking for that middle stitch and it will just be underneath your slip stitches, you can see it there, just aim to underneath your slip stitches to work over where you have already slip stitched, and no one will be any the wiser that you worked a slip stitch there before. We can then slip stitch to the 3rd chain to join, and then I am still going to slip stitch across to that final chain 3 space just for consistency and so that I know that all my ends are in the same place. Then I'm ready to fasten off. In theory, your project should be a lot flatter now. Well, much flatter when you consider it, and I'm not going to lie, it will benefit from a little bit of blocking. Your chain 3s do give you the most beautiful corners. All that's left to do, as always, is to weave our ends in, and there we have our completed coaster. I really like the fact that it's ever so slightly oversized so that it does allow for these beautiful spikes to show even with a drink sat atop our coaster. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for joining me as always. Don't forget to check out the table runner pattern that corresponds with these beautiful square coasters, and I will see you in the next video.